Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever you are in the world joining this webinar today with us. I would like to welcome all of you in this today webinar that is going to launch the latest FIDIC State of the World report, which will explore the latest trends and innovative solutions shaping the future of global transportation sector. My name is Alfredo Ingletti. I'm one of the vice presidents of FIDIC, the International Federation of Consulting Engineers, and I will be chairing the event today. I'm pleased to see so many of you joining this webinar that is a very important topic for our industry. The title today is going to be Tomorrow's Transportation and Decarbonisation Challenge. And this is going to join as far as the world intensifies its effort to achieve sustainability goals and combat climate change. Transportation is one of the main challenges and play a key role in all societies. Our new report takes in a depth look at the impact of transportation on the environment, economies, and societies, with a particular focus on challenges and innovative solutions for aviation sector and shipping sector. From sustainable aviation fuels to eco-friendly ship design, the report explores transformational changes, and for today's webinar, we have brought together a number of industry experts to discuss decarbonization strategies. I'm sure that insight and observation of this important topic for our industry are going to be well listening to you. Our panelists includes today Charlotte Morton, Chief Executive of World Biogas Association, Omar Moomen, Director of Ibramar Shipping International, Helen Ledbetter, Zero Emission Flight and Hydrogen Challenging Lead at the Civil Aviation Authority UK, Salim Akhtar Faruqi, Principal Scientist, Biofuel Division and the Council of Scientific and Industrial Research of the Institute of Petroleum, Tarek Dajani, CEO at Jordan National Shipping Lines, and Ajay Pradhan, President at C2CS2 India. The new report will showcase real work case studies, policy recommendation, and the latest advancement around decarbonizing transport. We hope that its contents will help to empower engineers, policymakers, and stakeholders to drive transformative change in transportation infrastructure. As well as offering an overview on transportation's global impact on climate change, the report will also focus on sustainable aviation and the fuels of the future, sustainability in shipping and marine transportation, eco-friendly port and marine infrastructure, policy frameworks, and regulation in transportation. The report also discusses some of the technological, financial, and regulatory challenges, the innovation and collaboration shaping the future, FIDIC's role, especially in facilitating global engineering dialogue for sustainable solutions, and also the key importance of cross-sectoral partnerships in achieving global decarbonizing goals. A copy of the new State of the World report will be available to download to all attendees at the webinar, and we will post a link in the chat during the event. This is going to be disclosed today. Speaking of the chat, please do post any question that you may have for our speakers or any question or comments in the chat box during the event, and we will try to get as many as possible of them. Before we hear from our panelists, I want to hand over to Basma Aissa, FIDIC's Head of Policy, ESG and Sustainability, and the author of the report, to say a few words and to present the report to her. Basma, thank you, over to you.
Thank you, Alfredo. Hello, my name is Basma Aissa. I'm Head of Policy, ESG and Sustainability at FIDIC. It is my great pleasure today to introduce FIDIC's State of the World report, our first for this year, Tomorrow's Transportation and the Decarbonization Challenge. I'm very happy to guide you through our findings and insights into transforming the transportation sector to align with global sustainability goals. This report delves deeply into the fundamental role that aviation, shipping, and marine sectors play in addressing climate change. we spotlight the indispensable contributions of engineering innovations and policy interventions in steering these sectors towards sustainable practices. As we are all aware, transportation significantly contributes to global greenhouse gas emissions, and our report explores innovative solutions and strategic policy frameworks necessary to mitigate these emissions effectively. Addressing this impact is not merely an option, it has actually become an urgent imperative. We focus particularly in the report on the aviation, shipping, and marine sectors, which are critical junctions where substantial emissions reductions can and must be achieved. Towards the end of the report, we do touch lightly on rail and road, but more focus is on aviation and marine throughout. In detailing this comprehensive approach, our report not only addresses theoretical frameworks, but it also brings to light a diverse array of case studies from around the world. And these would include sustainable aviation, explorations into biofuel technologies and synthetic fuels, with specific case studies like India's SpiceJet, which illustrate the practical application and challenges of implementing the SAFs, the sustainable aviation fuels. Also, innovative practices in shipping and marine transportation. We discuss the adoption of LNG, liquefied natural gas, and electrification in shipping, highlighted by the pioneering green initiatives at the Port of Singapore. We also have eco-friendly port and marine infrastructure case studies, examples such as Sri Lanka's Colombo Port's green initiatives that integrate renewable energy solutions as well as biodiversity conservation into port operations. Case studies as well on nature positive solutions, and these include collaborations like the Sustainable Ports Development Project in the Philippines with the Asia Development Bank, and groundbreaking programs like UNEP's Sustainable Clean Port initiatives. We have policy frameworks and regulations in transportation case studies. We analyze influential global and regional policy frameworks with a spotlight on Asia's contributions, including China's emission trading scheme, as well as also highlighting various schemes from Europe. These case studies serve as practical examples of how varied and adaptive our approaches must be in tackling the environmental challenges specific to different regional contexts. Building upon these insights, the report outlines several strategic recommendations. Our first recommendation is to promote and adopt sustainable practices. Engineers, policymakers, and industry leaders must integrate sustainable practices throughout all phases of transportation projects. The second recommendation is to leverage innovation and technology. It is crucial to capitalize on cutting-edge technologies such as digitalization, Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, and renewable energy solutions to drive operational efficiency and sustainability in the transportation sector. Our third recommendation is to advocate for supportive policies. We must engage actively with policymakers to establish and reinforce regulatory frameworks that facilitate sustainable transportation initiatives. And these policies should incentivize the adoption of clean technologies and support the infrastructural shifts necessary for their implementation. Our fourth recommendation is to foster cross-sectoral collaboration. Achieving our decarbonization goals requires a collaborative approach. We urge the FIDIC community to engage with government bodies, industry stakeholders, academic institutions, and non-governmental organizations to share their collaborative knowledge and resources. And our fifth and final recommendation is to commit to continuous learning and development. Ongoing education and professional development are vital, as well as upskilling and capacity building. And we encourage participation in the FIDIC Academy courses and other educational initiatives that are focused on sustainability, ensuring our community remains at the forefront of industry advancements. And we will transition now to our panel discussion. I look forward to engaging with our esteemed expert panelists to explore these themes deeply, and your participation today is a valuable part of our ongoing effort to address the transportation sector's impact on our climate. I encourage everyone to download and thoroughly explore this report. We're confident that it offers essential insights and actionable guidelines that will prove extremely valuable in your professional activities and advocacy work. And we hope you find it both enlightening and helpful as we continue to push the boundaries of what is possible in sustainable transportation. Thank you once again for joining us, and I hope you enjoy the discussion. Back to you, Alfredo.
Thank you, Basma, for this introduction of our document. And now I would like to start with the discussion with our speakers, and I'll start with Charlotte Morton, that she is Chief Executive at World Biogas Association. So, Ms. Morton, considering your leadership in the World Biogas Association, could you give us some inputs, some information on the global potential of biogas, not only as a source of renewable energy, but also as a significant player in reducing greenhouse gas emissions? How transformative do you see its role in the global energy mix?
Oh, good morning, everybody. Thank you, Alfredo. Collectively, we humans generate around 105 billion tons of organic waste every year. Now, all of those, if they're not being treated, are emitting methane. And you're all aware that methane is 86 times more damaging than CO2 as a greenhouse gas. And so it is imperative that we treat and recycle those to prevent those methane emissions. But whilst that's we think of that as an issue we need to address, it's actually an incredible opportunity, and in particular for the decarbonisation of transport. So within all of those organic wastes is the amount of energy equivalent to around a third of today's natural gas consumption, or about a fifth of today's electricity demand. And if we were to convert that, all of that into biomethane and then to LNG for transport, it could deliver about 135% of the anticipated LNG demand in 2040. So potentially the contribution for decarbonisation of transport is significant. And in terms, if we look at the contribution to reducing global greenhouse gas emissions in total, if you add the methane emissions that are prevented through treating those organic waste, plus the displacement of fossil fuels and fossil fertilizers, which is the other byproduct of recycling organic wastes, then you're looking at a total reduction of around 11% of global greenhouse gas emissions. So it's a huge, it's a very significant sector with very significant impact, which is why it's gaining significant support, and the industry is now starting to grow exponentially, which is really good news for all of us.
Thank you, Charlotte, for this contribution. For sure, and the fuels are the first topic we had to discuss about, because it's the starting point. And now I will move to Omar Moomen, that is the director of Ibramar Shipping International. Is an expert about shipping transport. Then it's part of a study today, and it's responsible for an important portion of the emissions amongst the transportation sector. And Omar, as an expert in shipping, can you explain to us how are shipping companies adapting their operation in response to increasing regulatory pressures for lower emission in the maritime industry? Then, as I said, it's responsible for an important part of the emissions worldwide.
Thank you, Alfredo, for this very interesting question. First of all, I'm not an academic or a scholar. I'm a shipbroker by education, and I've been chairman of the Shipbrokers and Ship Owners Association, Ship Owners Club here in Hamburg. So I'm more coming from a practitioner's view. In general, in shipping, the view is whatever the industry demands of you, you will comply with reluctantly. Shipping is a very slow adapting industry, typically. Be that as it may, there is some positive signs. In principle, ship owners and that is, I'm talking here about the majority, the silent majority, they think that slow steaming is a very effective way of reducing emissions because they burn less fuel. The other mitigating measure is the implementation and adaptation of scrubbers, where they scrub the NOx emissions and other sulfuric oxide emissions from the exhaust. But this has been met with some regulatory pressure because they cannot get rid of all these emissions that they are scrubbing from the exhausts. Some early adopters have put fixed sails on their boats and thereby reduced their carbon impact significantly by about 5 to 6%. It is a new technology. I mean, sailing as such is obviously not new, but to have fixed sails on your ship is a relatively or fairly new technology, and it's still in a, I would say, trial phase. What has been more commonplace now are the adoption of new engines if one is to order a new vessel, which can use dual fuels. So alternative fuels like LNG or even methanol and ammonia. And that is, for the time being, actually what is going on for the for the ship industry. We're not talking about the problems. Let's get to the problems later. Yeah. Okay.
No, okay. But it's important that today we are dealing with two transportation sectors that are maritime shipping and aviation industry that are made by big vessels, let me say. So if we change the technology in this situation with a small change, we can achieve big results because the production of gases of pollution from this type of transportation is made by single transport vessels that are bigger. So this is an industry that can be impacted by these changes with a great impact. And by this way, I want to shift to Helen Ledbetter. She's part of the Zero Emission Flight and Hydrogen Challenging as a lead at the Civil Aviation Authority in UK. And I would like to ask to you, how do you envision hydrogen playing a role in achieving zero emission in aviation? And what are the main challenges to its widespread adoption in the aviation sector?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Alfredo. Within the aviation industry, it is one of many options that have been put forward as a zero emission fuel that would sit alongside other options such as sustainable aviation fuel or batteries that give a number of options. So how we are looking at it is, how can this be safely integrated into the aviation system? So how do we safely introduce hydrogen as an aviation fuel? And some of the challenges that we are looking at are around building that safety case with industry. So industry work very closely with us to present their new technologies, how they work, and how they may adopt those requirements and understand the gaps that we currently have in our certification specifications to enable the safe flight of aircraft or the safe refueling of an aircraft on the ground. The introduction of hydrogen brings some new challenges. If it's liquid hydrogen, we're looking at cryogenic temperatures being used in an airport environment that we currently do not use. So it's all about upskilling staff, understanding how hydrogen is in use in aviation, and also the different forms it comes in. You've got different types of propulsion systems. You have the options of fuel cells, and then you also have the option of direct hydrogen combustion. So here it's all about as well, how do we get the hydrogen to airports? And how do we get it in a large enough quantity to enable the aviation industry to play its part in decarbonisation?
Thank you, Alan. Yes, this is very important that everyone makes all the effort available to reach the target. And now I go to Salim Akhtar Faruqi. He's, I guess, a scientist because he's from the Indian Industry Institute of Petroleum. And I would like to ask to you, given your role at the Indian Institute of Petroleum, what are the latest development in SAF technology in India, and how are these innovations being adapted for large-scale production?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for giving an opportunity. I'm Salim Akhtar Faruqi, basically a chemical engineer. So I myself working in one of the process, which is single-step HEFA process. So all we are aware that SAF is 65% has the possibility to reduce carbon emission among all the available options to reduce emissions. So in that, there are 8 approved processes so far, which has been recognized by ASTM as well as by Corsia. So one of the processes, HEFA process. So in India, so basically there are 2 main processes on which people are having more focus on. One is the HEFA process, the other one is alcohol to jet technology. So India, which is a big country and where oil is being consumed, so we are expecting huge potential of the collection of used cooking oil in India. As we know that in China, they are able to collect approximately 10 million tons of used cooking oil annually. So in India, we are not up to that scale, but we have a potential up to 2 to 5 million tons of used cooking oil per annum. So in India, more focus are being done on alcohol to jet technology and HEFA technology. So one of the processes on which I am also working on is the single-step HEFA process. Although it is very similar to 2-step HEFA process, but chemically there is aromatics presence in our SAF. So which enable it more potential to go beyond 50% blending. So that is a novelty of this process. So in India, I think the target has of the blending has not been yet out, but the indicative target is 1% blending by 2027 and 2% by 2028 and 5% by 2030. So keeping in mind the aviation fuel. Keeping in mind the aviation fuel which being consumed is 8 million tons, and 1% will be 0.8 million tons annually. So there are 2 plants which is already announced. One is expected to come. So the one plant which is coming with our process is with one of the in Indian Coast refinery. So the target will be approximately 35 kiloliters, that is 9 KTPA plants. And the other plant is 88 KTPA plant based on alcohol to jet technology. The third plant is again on HEFA technology, which is expected to come by 2027 with the capacity around of 7 KTPA. So these are the Indian perspectives and the scale on which commercialization is being considered in India. So I can talk more details in the coming.
Thank you, Salim. Good to hear it from you. And now I shift back to the industry with Tarek Dajani, CEO of Jordan National Shipping Lines. And you, as a leader in the shipping industry, can please show us how is Jordan National Shipping Lines working toward reducing its carbon footprint as an example on how you can contribute to these targets.
Thank you, Alfredo. And I'm honored to be here with all of you. You know, going back to basics in business, we all work to maximize wealth and shareholders' equity. So the main driver is always generating revenue, income, profits, all these things. Now, when we at GNSL or any other company, I think we can generalize this. We work based on specific objectives and clear mandate. For us, we need to look at it to bring it more to engineering. It's like project management. You need to deliver within a time frame with quality and within a specific budget. Now, this is the operational mandate. Over this, which is the umbrella, we need to implement and adopt a very strict QHSE, quality, health, safety, and environment processes, principles, and mandates in our business. So to, let's say, balance and maximize both serving the global objectives and mandates on sustainability and going into the net zero carbon emissions with maximizing profits and maintaining business continuity. We adopt specific things in every project we go into. We start by choosing the right vessel, you know. The choice of the vessel, whether the hull or the propulsion, the systems it implements is very, very critical in carbon emissions. The water resistance to the hull, the propulsion systems, all these things, they can make or break your economics when conducting a business and for your project delivery. Then we always look into the basics and strict operational system implementation. Our colleague Omar in the beginning mentioned the, you know, the slow or economic speed implementation. That's very important. However, it's not always possible because you need to arrive in specific time, and timely delivery is very important. I need to continue my business. I cannot just continue with economic speed and then lose laycans or lose opportunities. So balancing is very important. Having said that, arriving on time, you know, you say failure to plan is a plan to fail. So we always plan to arrive on time to the port when it's free, because it's very important to reduce the maneuverability and the delays or the you know, inability to berth on time and leave on time. So arriving on time, planning that is very critical. With the speed, it goes together. And that brings something very critical, which is planning the route. We need to look very deeply into what is the optimized route to arrive from point A to point B. It's not always the straight line is the best line in shipping. You need to go against the adverse weather conditions. You need to look into bottlenecks or issues or problems that you might face. Today, we are facing a lot of risks in the seas we are all aware of. So it is very challenging in actual operations. So planning is very critical, and knowing exactly what are your objectives and what you need to deliver and how. Going one step back, in-house, you need to do your proper, let's say, preventive maintenance to make sure that your engines and your systems are always efficient, because carbon emissions and continuity and the state of the vessel you are handling or managing is very critical. For that, we implement specific technologies for procurement and for monitoring. It's like system of KPIs, you know, performance indicators. System A is red or green or amber, and you based then your actions based on that. Now, two fundamental elements we at GNSL, and I'm sure most of the companies look into, is that you can have the best vessel, best systems, best port infrastructure, but then the people who are implementing the business are the key factor. We call them the human capital. So that's what we work on. We ourselves have a maritime academy, so we train our people, whether mariners or engineers. And we make sure that even in simulations and all these things, we take into consideration the maximization of operational excellence, reduction of emissions, all these things. And we have a technical management company that takes those people out of the academy and place them on job with clear metrics that they need to implement. So it is a comprehensive and complete system of planning, execution, and monitoring. That's how we do it. And we are a market taker, so we cannot do much beyond our capability, but we try.
Thank you. This is important for every one of us to make our best efforts to go beyond the limits. And now from the operators, I will try to discuss about the port facilities, and I'll give the floor to Ajay Pradhan, President C2S2 India. And I would like to ask you, as from your role, considering the significant the importance that ports play in India's economy, if you can elaborate on the current sustainability initiatives being implemented at major Indian marine ports.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can. Or
Okay.
at least my.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you. And I come from a port consulting and airport and sports in India and Middle East and this part of the world. And what we have seen, we are coming with a new benchmark of system and process in Indian ports. What we call it's green port initiatives. So starting with the ports, large ports which are like say Mumbai or maybe Chennai, they are slowly getting out from dirty port, we call it, is to the more of a box cargo, which is a container port, and more easy and simple to manage and decarbonization. So there is an initiative by we have an agency called shipping ministries, which hold shipping all the ports, which is like a corporatization, 12 major ports and private ports. So they have initiative to look at monitor and manage it. They believe that, and the government initiative that, and I also do that as a part of the environmental audit and decarbonization, being a national accreditation member. So what we try to see, we try to help them to install sensors in different locations, in ports, on offshore and on land-based, and including the surroundings. As you know that, Alfred, in India, most of the ports or airports, they are in very close to large metropolitan cities or population. So what we try to tell them to measure, to look at air pollution, to measure dust pollution, noise. Noise has become very important for big cities like Delhi, Mumbai, or maybe the port cities like Calcutta or Chennai and all. So there is something called, we are using sensors to monitor those data and model it and show the impact of pollution in noise or air and dust all in around. And thereby the port can take a punitive action or mitigating measures in terms of actions in reducing the pollutant or reducing the activities which is going to really help them towards sustainability or green port initiative. That is one aspect. So they're using sensors, they're using technologies, they're using models to really monitor and see that how these pollutants all around in the port and in the surrounding area is going. The other aspect is very important actually, that these ports and airports both, as you know, that is close to very high rise or high income neighborhoods, and they need to really protect and see that how sustainability both they can have they live together side by side or coexist. So thereby there is a audit process now coming as a mandatory, that every year every port has to come out the audit reports in terms of their pollutions, in terms of their the fuel part is not this, I'm talking about the land part. Fuel part is other aspects they're looking at. That is one. So that is for existing port. Now the new norms, Alfred, is coming actually, that new benchmark, new sustainability index been created as part of the Ministry of Environment and Forest. When they give grant for expansion of port or new ports or greenfield ports, So they come with the new rules and norms that these are the things you need to really look at. Fortunately, unfortunately, most of the best of the sites have already gone last 70, 80 years. So the new sites are more difficult sites, challenging in terms of environmental point of view, be it mangroves, be it flora fauna, be it is close to the habitats which they cannot do. So thereby the new sustainability index has been put in, and thereby a consultant like me, we are coming with a new reference point that these things need to be really adhere by the project proponent or the project developer, and they need to maintain and submit this report every quarter to the state they operate, and the central government, Central Pollution Control Board, other regulatory measures every year. So these are some of the initiatives have been taken, being an emerging market. So new ports are going to come, expansion is going to happen. So they need to really bring in new international norms or standards. This is how the current situation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jay. This is very important what you said, that being India and an emerging market has the need of a lot of infrastructure, and this is the right time to do it the best, because in other regions where the market is not so strong, there are more challenges in refurbishing, in reconverting, and this is normally more difficult. Also, as Tarek was saying, that it's always challenging to change while you are running. No, it's better to start from the beginning. But thank you, all of you. It was a really interesting discussion with very different and point of view, a great mix of opportunities. But now I want to come back to Charlotte to ask to come back to fuel and to biogas, to ask Charlotte what, with increasing recognition of biogas in achieving the sustainability goals, what do you identify as the principal challenges currently impeding the growth of the biogas sector? How can stakeholders across industries collaborate to overcome these obstacles?
Thank you, Alfredo. You're right that there are a number of challenges. If you think about the fact that all those organic wastes that I talked about initially are under the control of farmers, sewage is produced by humans in cities, food waste is in cities, food and other industrial wastes are produced by manufacturers, food and drinks industry. All of that has to be captured and recycled. And the infrastructure needs to be put in place, and it needs to be upgraded and either put into a grid or upgraded into to LNG. So as a circular economy technology, there have to be a suite of regulations in place for businesses to be incentivized to do the right thing. So we need to be putting in place food waste collection infrastructure, sewage infrastructure in countries that don't have it, as well as the biogas infrastructure to take all that organic material. So given that the global methane pledge, to which the industry can contribute about a half, and therefore we need to be doing it, is in just over 5.5 years' time, we have to be thinking in a completely radical way. We simply can't carry on growing at the rate that we're growing, which is actually pretty exciting, and it's a good rate of growth, but the targets we're up against are extreme. So the only way this will work is if we can ensure that every country has a regulatory framework in place that will ensure that businesses can develop projects that can attract funding. So one of the things that we are doing with the support of the Global Methane Hub is developing a standard global biogas regulatory framework, taking the best examples from around the world to make that available to countries and states to adapt to their own circumstances, which should speed up the rate at which, should dramatically speed up the rate at which the right appropriate regulatory framework can be put in place for that all those organic waste to be treated through biogas and for bio-LNG and other forms of energy to be generated. We're also developing a global AD certification scheme to ensure that all those plants are designed, built, and operated well and are performing well. When any industry is growing at a very rapid rate, there's a risk that minimum standards are not met, and there are risks to the industry in terms of performance levels. So it's very important that plants are designed, built, and operated well, and where there are common shared standards, that also helps to increase the speed and rate at which those plants can be built. So one other thing that I think is going to be really important is ensuring that there is a process to allow all stakeholders involved in growing an industry to participate in any adaptation required to that global biogas regulatory framework I talked about, so that all those stakeholders are aligned on what is trying to be achieved and can agree on the pathway to ensuring that that outcome is achieved. Because it's not just about a global framework, which is obviously critical, but we also then have to model the supply chain requirements and ensure that there's investors and companies within that supply chain have confidence that there will be demand for the products that they're producing and can similarly attract the investment that they need. Obviously, there's also enormous need for capacity building. If the industry is going to meet its potential, then we're looking at something like 10 to 15 million people coming into the industry, all of whom need to be trained. So there's a lot that we need to do and a lot that we need to do fast. We have what we refer to as our Making Biogas Happen program, which is designing all of those things that I've just discussed. And I really very much hope that that will make a difference, because it's critical to all of us that it does. And we do achieve the recycling of those organic wastes. And it, of course, the most exciting thing is it's an incredibly exciting economic opportunity. So a lot of people talk about contrast the need for us to meet our climate goals, and we can't disrupt our economies to do that, which I simply don't understand. This is the biggest economic opportunity that we have ever had, delivering sustainability. So it's a win-win-win-win-win on absolutely every level. So anyway, delighted to be able to talk about it and hopefully infuse everybody here to participate in helping to build a more sustainable world and come into the biogas industry.
Thank you, Charlotte, also for your passionate intervention in this and this is the real aim of this initiatives from the FIDIC community, to strengthen the knowledge and the comprehension of the importance of these topics, and to share and to distribute this information as widely as we can. And I came back to Omar to ask from your qualified point of view, working and operating between Germany and Egypt, which are, in your light, the sustainable marine projects currently underway in Egypt, and how do the needs and approaches to sustainability in this project differ from those in Europe and in the Northern Hemisphere, if any? Strong question.
Yeah, very big questions. Thank you. In general, I would say there is a general optimism when it comes to implementing such measures. One recent example would be the signing of the MOU between during the COP28 gathering. There's real money behind it. $1.1 billion have been committed for green bunkering in Egypt. So that is a commitment. Then also recently, on the 28th of May, Abu Dhabi Ports, together with Orascom Construction and a local shipping company, Port Transmar, have committed. Transmar is part of Abu Dhabi Group, have committed also to supply low carbon fuel for maritime transport. And as was pointed out before, this is no little commitment, because it involves a lot of, apart from the infrastructure that has to be built and from the commitment from the production side, i.e. engineering, that's what you're for, the FIDIC is for, and all the consultants. It needs a lot of training, because the handling of such alternative fuels is not deep knowledge, it's new. And whenever something is new, mistakes happen. And ammonia, for example, is toxic. It is toxic. Yes, it is used in the industry for a long time, but it's not been used as a fuel. That's fairly new. So the people who work in the port are typically, I'm not, I don't want to use any derogatory terms, but they are not rocket scientists, just normal people. And they have to make sure that everything works. So there's a lot of challenges on the one hand, but on the other hand, there's a lot of optimism, and the transfer from the rich nations to the poorer nations seems to be working, or at least there is momentum. And the North, the global North, is investing more in the global South and giving the global South more opportunities to invest in such frontier technologies. And that is really helping. It's creating a new environment for young people who want to achieve a better standard of living. So in general, it has a very positive impact. But it's still not widely used. The problem is ships go everywhere, and everywhere is where you don't have these bunkering facilities. They're very, very scarcely presented on the globe. And that is an issue, because anyhow, so that is really, these are the two recent examples. There's one example which I would like to mention, and that is that's been implemented for quite some time, and that is the use of shore electricity in the port of Damietta, for example, which has been mandatory for quite some time, which has resulted in a betterment of the air quality in the port of Damietta for the city and its inhabitants, which live close by. And I think that similar things have been done also here in Hamburg. It is a challenge, especially if you have a busy port, because you need a lot of electricity to hook up a ship, which is a small factory. So you can imagine it is a challenge, but it works. And it's a step in the right direction. Definitely.
Oh, Omar, thank you very much for this suggestion, because this is very important. And given my personal experience in Italy, we are working on every big port to make possible to supply the ships from the ground side, to reduce the use of the engines in near the port and in the port. So this is a double win solution, because it's reduced the cost of energy and reduced the emissions for production of energy, and for sure the city benefits of this. This is something that could be done everywhere, and now I don't know, in Germany probably for sure there are a lot of hydrogen plants to produce energy in the ports to supply then the energy. So there is a great contribution from all the sectors to address this big challenge to reduce transport emission and emissions in general. And now I head back to the aviation sector, to Helen, to ask if you can give us some suggestions about how the regulatory and safety challenges must be addressed in the aviation industry and transition, especially to hydrogen fuel that was mentioning just right now.
Yeah, certainly. I think as we work quite closely with industry, they are highlighting to us those gaps and those risks and challenges that are being faced. The one that comes up regularly is safety zone distances for refueling aircraft. So with current kerosene fueled aircraft, we have a 3-meter safety zone while the aircraft is being refueled, but we currently don't have any standards for what that would look like for hydrogen aviation. There are some standards that were put out, I think it was back in the 60s by NASA for the space industry, where they recommend a refueling safety distance of 30 meters. And if you try and place that into an airport environment, it's not feasible. So we are trying to work with other regulators, so here in the UK with the Health and Safety Executive, to look at what size safety zones would be needed for refueling an aircraft, and looking at, can we continue using the same processes and operational standards that we use today? And then if we cannot do that, what does a new standard and a new operational procedure look like? Some of the other aspects that we're asked regularly about is the purification of hydrogen. So what levels are needed, because there's a different level of hydrogen purification needed for fuel cells compared to combustion. And so would we always go for that 99.999% purity level to use across all aviation? Or would it be you'd have 2 grades of hydrogen purity at an airfield to use, one for fuel cell and one for combustion? And also for that whole fuel journey is, is it okay to just accept the purification certification at the point of manufacture, or are there points on that journey that we need to continue to check the purification levels of that hydrogen, and where do we need to do that? Do we need to do that once it reaches the airport and it's in storage, or do we also need to check it before it actually goes onto the aircraft? So is there more points in that area that we need to check? And another area we need to look at is the fire safety and rescue. So if there at an airport there's an incident, maybe a spillage or a leak, or if unfortunately there was an accident with a hydrogen fueled aircraft, how would fire and rescue services respond to this? Do they have the correct equipment at an airfield to enable them to deal with this and comply with their requirements of reaching an incident or accident in the current timeframes? So those are 3 of the larger areas that industry are asking us to prioritize and look at. And to help with this, we're looking across other industries. So we are aware that fuel cells are being introduced in the transport sector, in rail, road, shipping, and understanding what we can learn from industries that are already using these technologies. Also, that hydrogen is being used successfully in process industry for many years. So what can we learn from them? And are there areas that we can bring across into aviation?
Thank you very much, Helen. And continue to build on, I would like to ask to Salim, that as far as I can understand, is working closely with the SpiceJet. If you can share insights into how airlines are integrating SAF into their operations. What challenges and opportunities have you encountered in this collaboration?
Yeah, actually, I would just want to let you know, not only SpiceJet, like CSR IP is working with other airlines as well. Like in India, the major airlines are like Indigo, Air India, and SpiceJet. So we have closely worked. Yes, with the SpiceJet, we had the first biofuel flight in India, where 25% of the fuel was supplied by IAP, and it was tested as per the DGCA recommendations. So it met the required specification. Since the engine on which it was tested was from Pratt and Whitney, and we earlier worked with Pratt and Whitney in 2010, where in a consortia, and they have tested our fuel. So they have given the approval for the test flight, which happened in 2016 to 2018. And the flight was the engine data came, and it was like at par normal like a commercial aviation turbine fuel. Even the engine temperature were cooler compared to your conventional aviation fuel. So I want to give you one more experience. We had experience of working with the Indian Air Force as well, where we have supplied approximately 10,000 liters of sustainable aviation fuel. So since those engines are not based on Western engine, but on more Russian engine. So we did the engine test as well initially to establish that this fuel is suitable for using in those aircraft. And with 10% CSIR IP got approval. So the major challenges with these kind of certification and testing is that the quantity of the fuel, because right now in India, there is no major facility which produces large amount of sustainable aviation fuel. So we are looking forward, what I have earlier mentioned, that we are planning bigger capacity plants, demo commercial unit. So probably that will solve those issues. And the other challenges is the feedstock issue, which right now is being done in a chunk, like by NGOs, like used cooking oil in where I am living is in the Dehradun region. It is nearby Delhi. So NGO collects those kind of used cooking oil from different restaurants and hotels and collect it, but those quantities has to be enhanced. Those are the challenges. The opportunity is that all the airlines like Indigo, Air India, and SpiceJet had an MOU with as well as agreement with CSIR IP and other refineries which are willing to produce sustainable aviation fuel in large quantities. So the offtake guarantee is already there. Like whatever the quantity it seems is going to be produced, that will be taken by the airlines. So that is the opportunity which is there. So moreover, 2G ethanol is having a bigger potential in India. So alcohol to jet technology is having very much opportunity. And IUCL, I have mentioned, like they are putting a 88 KTPA plant in one of their refinery. So these are the challenges and opportunities with working with airlines. And what I can see is that there is a huge potential, and airlines are willing to take whatever the quantity will be produced. So coming to like the feedstock availability, if HEFA process is being targeted. So like if it is 2 million tons is being accumulated, so it will be sufficient to meet 12 to 15% demand of the sustainable aviation.
Well, this is important. And if I can stay with you, and there are a couple of questions in the chat that I see can reach most of us. So, what about the cost of this transition in the aviation sector, and if this is just calculated by someone, or there's a provision of what could be the increase? Of course, this is something that is important in every field, but especially for this use of sustainable aviation fuels. Did you make some estimation about the cost, the increase in costs?
Yeah, actually, like with respect to cost, sustainable aviation fuel cost, basically, if you break up the component from which it is coming, the most 55 to 60% of the cost is coming from the feedstock. So right now it is 1.5 to 2x of normal aviation turbine fuel. But we are expecting, like with the expense of time, when more commercial unit will be coming, people will be more willing to produce more feedstocks at a lower cost, because there will be a demand, huge demand. So like if it is around $0.50 the feedstock price, then it will be your competitive with your normal aviation turbine fuel. And with respect to, there is another question on the suitability. Like I told you, ASTM is the specification which all the sustainable aviation fuel producer follows. So once it meets a particular pathway, we have to choose, and if that meets a STM specification, that is suitable for running in an airplane. But if it is a new candidate fuel, then you have to go to ASTM for the approval, and there is a 4054 certification process.
Thank you very much. And I come back to Tarek, that in the first round was very effective in explaining us how it's important the economic matters in the managing of this needed challenge and needed change in our in our habits, the way we manage our industries. And being having in mind your experience, I would like to ask to you, Tarek, what challenges does the shipping industry in the Middle East, especially Middle East, face in the transition to alternative fuels, and how this can be overcome?
Okay, thank you for this. It is a challenging question, not only the challenges. You know, one of the main issues, I think, not only in the Middle East, in the world, is that shipping, maybe 80% of the shipping companies we see today are second or third generation family businesses. And, you know, culturally, and in the Middle East is very strong, this. If I do it this way and it's successful and it's working, why should I change?
Why have to change?
So resistance to change is and the culture of how I do business, because everyone says, I know better, I know how to do it, because it has been done for the past 50 years and it's successful. So the change in adapting to alternative fuels or alternative systems is not something that we can change instantly. There has to be stages and phases for that. Add to that the lack of regulatory frameworks that either incentivize you or enforce you to do the changes and adopt alternative fuels. And in most of the countries in the Middle East, the regulatory frameworks are, let's say, poor to medium in terms of actual implementation. There are big efforts happening and the changes are very fast, but still how to impose that while at the same time balancing between a ship owner, for example, or ship operator, with the need to put very high initial investment cost. If I want to change my fleet from, you know, conventional fuel to LNG or to hybrid even systems that takes LNG and fuel, first of all, it's very high investment initially, and the returns are not clear because you know that the cost is fixed, but the returns, how it will happen and over how many years, you don't know. And the problem is that if I build my model on a return, return on investment or the payback period, 10 years, there is no security that in 5 years, there will be new regulations enforcing something new. So this ambiguity is always a challenge to the shipping industry. And in the Middle East, because we have so many small to medium-sized players, it is even a bigger challenge. Add to the investment cost, then the technology availability itself and the access to that. We see a difference between the technology availability and the infrastructure in Europe or in the States versus what we have in the region. And the problem is that we are bringing and rely on foreign experts to come and bring us what we need to do. The problem is that you need always take into consideration the infrastructure on a macro level, not only the specific projects you are putting in. I might build my own terminal for my own purposes if I have the capacity, but the ecosystem and the stakeholders around me need to be also aligned to what I'm doing in order for my business model to work. If I'm running a business between a port that is highly advanced and another port, which is the case, that is even not equipped with the minimum equipment to handle the operation in the same manner that I'm operating in another port, then there is an issue that I need to bridge. And bridging that is cost, is time, is resources. So all of these together are big issues. Going into green energy infrastructures by specific element, it is also an issue. We are talking today about ammonia for bunkering. The LNG, I mean, I started studying LNG when I was in Scuola Mattei in Milano in 97, 98. And we were thinking that in 5 or 6 years' time, LNG will be the main. Until today, LNG bunkering is not there. it's very minimal. We have Singapore, you have Rotterdam, you have Jacksonville, you have few ports around the world, but it's scarce. So why should I invest in something that, although we are every day talking about it, in the past 20 years, it did not prove to go in mass? There is the cost issue, there is the availability issue, and there is always the regulatory and the what next. We are talking today about new types of bunkering, fueling. We didn't talk about the autonomous vessels 10 years ago. We are talking about them today. We didn't talk about the hybrid systems 15 years ago. We are seeing them today. So the speed versus the actual situation on the ground makes ship owners or operators or even the ports reluctant in adopting and moving into the alternative fuels, adding to that the cost and the time, because building a new vessel takes at least 18 months to 24, 36 months. Working on a new terminal will take you between 18 months to 24 months. This is high cost time versus when will be the return. So that's in a nutshell. How to overcome this? We need to have serious commitments, intergovernment, with all the stakeholders working together on that. You need to find a way to put financial incentives, whether to the ports or to the shipping community. You need to give grace periods and training, working on the culture, working on the community. You cannot work with individual companies. You need to work with the community of maritime industry in every country with regional efforts. I think that's what we need in the Middle East, because we have countries like Saudi or the Emirates or Qatar who are able to invest, and sometimes they are actually going ahead of the curve through consultants' advices, and then you end up maybe with white elephant projects that are not needed or not practical, versus other countries in the same region that are not able even to continue with the conventional business model today with the normal conventional fuel, bunkering, all these things. So that is an issue. Omar mentioned about Egypt. Egypt, until today, we are facing issues in the quality of the bunkering, the conventional bunkering. So we're talking about hydrogen and LNG, whereby the normal low sulfur fuel is not there. There are paradoxes there, and there are, it's like a Pandora box. We can talk about it forever, but there are serious challenges. And without global or regional efforts, I don't think we can overcome this easily.
Someone can say this is the reason to change. If the quality of the existing bunkering is not that good, let's change and move on. But beside the joke, this is the real challenge, no? To make the change and getting the business live. Because at the end, if you reach the target not to have emission because your ships are not traveling anymore, is not a is not a result at all. No? So let's go, Ajay, to your vision from the consultancy point of view, and I would like to ask you, always talking about India, what are the primary challenges that the Indian marine ports face in their journey towards sustainability? And if you think, what are innovative solutions that can be considered to be implemented in these ports to address these challenges?
Yeah, thank you. Well, that's actually due to the new climate and sustainable regimes, and India is a self-made goal, which up by 2030 to bring 50% of fossil fuel towards renewable energy, and thereby the ports have been encouraged, and the shipper also being encouraged to look at a new fuel like a hydrogen. So in India, if you come and see that there are a number of such plants or hydrogen fuel systems being now on different stage. Some are already operational and the smaller size, some are big, I myself involved in one of large green steel based out of hydrogen, including the entire port would be operated by hydrogen fuel. But that's going to happen actually somewhere in Middle East, not in India, but it's Indian steel company who's going to do that. So thereby, there are companies which like large private sector ports, which is Mundra, I think Adani port, which is worldwide operating now. So they have made a new regime or a new goal for themselves that they operate something like 10 or 12 ports in India as a private sector. They are going ahead by 2032. They'll make entire ports net zero, and including the cargo movement, the truckers or the train systems. Now you can see that India's entire railway system is electrified, but they are not 100% net zero. They're still operating at 60% of a fossil fuel and balance is renewable energy. So there are certain logistics part which is adding also to this port sector, thereby bringing more challenge to the shipping companies and the port operators especially. As far as government ports are concerned, they are corporatized. 12 major ports which we have actually in India, which is being centrally owned government corporates. And they are coming with threats from the private sector in coming days because the private sector going ahead with their mandate towards green port, decarbonization, including the marine part, the vessels, bunkerings, the fuel, and the sustainability of their entire leading towards ESG. So therefore, the government is now in a big, threat from the private sector port operators in terms of going towards a decarbonization.
Thank you, Ajay, and it's very important to hear from you, from India, from Middle East, from these regions that are in charge of the great market, great markets, great challenges, and this is very important to hear from you that way. I take the opportunity before, as we are heading to the conclusion of the webinar, I would like to have a last round for a very quick one to each one of you, to have a 1 minute, 2 minutes nutshell about the topics we treat. And before this, I read a question that would raise the full webinar as well in the chat. This from one friend from Baku that is asking what we are expecting from COP29 in Baku. I think the aim of our FIDIC community is to raise the volume up, not to make ourselves visible and reachable, and to be able to put this hypothesis, our work on the right tables of the stakeholders, of people that are taking the decision. And by this way, we are going to, for sure, to join back with the expectation to be listened by people that are taking the decision, but mainly that are deciding where to put money. Because for sure, one important thing is that it's not the industry, it's not the private, it's not the people working that can bear over their shoulders all the efforts to reach these targets. It's needed that the government take this on their agenda and deliver the money for the research, but also for the operation. And this is what we try to advocate in all the places where we can, and for sure COP29 will be one of these. And I come back, Charlotte, to you for a very last and quick one. And just to ask you, what do you think could be the strategic steps to really realize a transition to biofuel, to biogas and biofuel for your experience? just a couple of minutes to head on the conclusion.
Sure, and thank you. I mean, I think the most important thing that we all need is the commitment of global leaders towards transitioning and making clear their own commitment to support that. That support, that commitment has to be backed up by policy support, and there needs to be a clear plan in place. So we need countries to be leaders. And I think I would highlight, we've mentioned India a few times today. Prime Minister Modi has made a commitment to building 5,000 large-scale bio-CNG plants in India. And I know from speaking to ministers in India that they feel very much that that is actually being driven, and they are being put under pressure to deliver that. So one of the outputs of India's leadership of the G20 was the Global Biofuels Alliance. The World Biogas Association is a founding member of the Global Biofuels Alliance. That is leading to commitment, the development of policy frameworks and action at the end of the day. Because I think you're quite right that it's all about moving the money. And the money, there is plenty of money out there, but it needs projects that stack up economically to invest in. And so that is where we come back to having the right policy support and regulatory frameworks in place for those projects to be developed, which comes ultimately back to leadership.
Thank you, Charlotte. And Omar, from your point of view, always in 2 minutes, what are the most promising technologies or fuel that can drive to reduce emissions in the international shippings?
There are two conflicting or two different views. One is ammonia, the other one is methanol, but both have the bottleneck of shipyard capacity, because you can't, as Mr. Dajani already illustrated, you can't build ships overnight. It takes time. And then also the number of available shipyards which can replace the existing fleets is not sufficient to do so in a short span of time. So the practical solution would be to equip the vessels with a dual fuel solution, even if this is expensive, because there's not enough infrastructure worldwide in order to keep the vessels afloat. That must always be the target, that the vessels can navigate and steer wherever you want them to go and come back safely. What I would like to draw your attention to finally, just as a hint, shipping in general is much more anarchic than the airline industry or the transport industry, like road transport. Give you an example. If there is an accident, airlines and trucks would be under the jurisdiction of the country where the accident happens. Not so in shipping. Shipping is completely is outside of the local regulation, normally, under normal circumstances. That is why the insurance market for the shipping industry is also completely different from the insurance markets for engineering structures, like you are the consultants for. So in general, yes, the demand is big for solutions, but what ship owners want, these are the people who invest their money and other people's money, they want standardized solutions which are available in abundance, so that you don't run into problems when you navigate a floating structure that costs you between $30 and $90 million to floating around the globe. You want this floating structure to be of use and not to be just a heap of metal in the sea. So my
very clear.
Yeah, so that is what I want to say. We have to agree on standards. So this needs more collaboration. This needs more in-depth exchange of views, and maybe a harmonization of the legal framework, which is definitely not the case so far.
Thank you, Omar. Thank you very much. And Helen, I would like to ask you, from the Civil Aviation Authority UK, which are the measures currently undertaken to support innovation in zero-emission flight technologies?
Yes, certainly. So we have launched recently a 18-month program called the Hydrogen Challenge, and that's to work with industry to understand what their new technologies are, what technology readiness level they're at. So on their scale of 1 to 9, where are they currently with their new technologies? We've already seen that there's a significant difference between the technology readiness for gaseous hydrogen applications in comparison to liquid hydrogen. And it's understanding when they're looking to have those entry into service dates for these new technologies. So within the Hydrogen Challenge, we also have launched the Hydrogen Sandbox, and that's working with 3 industry members on their aviation technologies and seeing how they perform in certain test environments. And that's looking at whether it could be simulation and model testing, it can be ground testing, and ultimately flight testing once that technology is at a suitable maturity level. And all this information that's gathered then helps us to understand what we need to make changes to in our regulation. And it also enables us to engage directly with industry and work to understand how we can be a collaborative industry so that we move forward to reach those targets that have been put in place for industries to decarbonize.
Thank you, Ellen. Thank you very much. And Salim, last question also for you, a quick answer. Coming back to sustainable aviation fuels, and what do you think could be the critical policy supports needed to accelerate the adoption?
Yeah, actually, with respect to policy, like 3 main points. One point is like viability gap funding, like whatever the capital investment is required, government viability gap funding and incentives on the feedstock, as well as some subsidies and differential pricing of the fuel will be more important to for the adoption of biofuels in the industry. And with respect to other things like testing, if a new candidate fuel is developed in Asian countries, there are no testing agency in Asian part. So most of the testing agencies in European countries or in USA. So a fast testing agency for the adoption of new candidate fuel will be in terms of policy is going to help us a lot.
Yeah. This is very important. Yes, thank you, Salim. And Tarek, just to close with a signal of hope, which are in your region the one that you can mention, one project that you can mention or initiative that could be related to sustainability or emission reduction in your area that you want to mention?
No, hope is always there, and programs on the grounds are there. Not only one, there are actually many. I mean, recently we have seen Safir, which is part of Abu Dhabi Ports, launching or receiving actually their electric tugboat. This is something new to the industry, not only in the region, but worldwide, which is good to have electric tugs, EV. Sohar Port, for example, and Free Zone, they have let's say fast-track their LNG bunkering, and they are implementing eco-industrial policies. Saudi, their Vision 2030, they are implementing green hydrogen projects, waste management in the ports, the green bunkering, LNG and biofuels. They are trying to do a lot on that. And of course, the UAE is also one of the leaders in this. Jabal Ali has already installed solar panels to equip the port with zero emissions, and they have carbon regulation technologies in place. Egypt are very aggressive and ambitious in their programs, whether the hydrogen or the LNG bunkering. In Sukhna, we see developments in the new terminals that are being built across the Egyptian coast. So there are so many. But again, we are talking about initiatives and projects. We need to see on the ground how this will be, it's like the spillovers and the domino effect in growing this in the near future in the other countries around the region. So there is a lot of
Thank you, Tarek. Thank you very much. And Ajay, to let you close, and from your perspective, which could be the next step to develop the sustainability of especially of Indian ports, but in general.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to draw attention of all the participants and my colleagues that India last year, exactly 1 year ago, has launched a new guidelines which called Harit Sagar, the green ports or green ocean. So that's what the initiative which has the guidelines, and the biggest or important aspects in that is monitoring with the new environmental standards. That is first one. And the second one is initiative which they have taken on the electrifying no fuel-based vessels or the system to be used in ports, or be it is onshore or offshore, so or land-based or anything. So these two aspects are strictly going to be monitored. And what they have made it, actually, we just finished our the general election. So they have given 18 months for all major ports. That's starting from June now. Next 18 months, all major ports in India are going to be install the sensor-based technology to monitor their environmental standards as specified in the guidelines by the Pollution Control Board of central government. And that's going to take in the phase one. And subsequently, they wanted to decarbonize port by bringing ethanol, ammonia, creating storage facilities, and then bringing hydrogen is one of the driving force now. So these are the initiatives which are going, and I'm sure that the self-made goal of 45% 45% intensity of the decarbonization which India has committed to COP is to be achieved by 2030. Thank you.
Thank you, Jai, and I guess we are landing in perfect time. So thank you very much to all of you participating today to this discussion, to all participants that give us some suggestions and questions in the chat. And I suppose there's a slide remembering us the next yes, thank you very much, the next steps. That is for sure the Global Infrastructure Conference in Geneva in September. I wonder to meet all of you in person over there to further discussion on those topics, and from the 8th to 10th September. And at the beginning of December to 4, the contract users conference in London. That could be another important place to have a further discussion on all those topics. And by this way, I think we concluded. You can find all these documents on our website. And in the chat, we spread several times today the link to download this State of the World report. But you can find all FIDIC documentation in our website. And I think then that's it. And from all of us in the FIDIC team, I would like to thank you for being today with us, and see you soon somewhere else. Thank you very much.